Dare I say that the Democratic Party is officially on life support? I don't even think that the broken or cracked bell, the cracked or broken bell, could possibly save it. I do not think so. But wishfully, campaign 2016 can be saved by the broken bell. Because it's time for day 2 of Roya Rockwood at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. I'm your host, Roya Rockwood. It's 1:47 in the a.m. I actually don't know how long I've been up. I've actually been up since, I'm going to say, maybe 7:24 in the a.m. yesterday. So, I've been up for about 18 hours. Which really isn't as long as I actually anticipated to be. We don't really have many notes to go through today, but they are rather long, so we'll see what happens. So, before we begin, we ended up losing Miss Cleo. Yes, for those of you that do not know Miss Cleo, she was a famed, a famous fake psychic that was made popular between 1997 and 2004. You would know her for her famous Jamaican accent in her tarot readings, which wasn't an actual Jamaican accent, apparently. It was faked. The entire thing was fake. Yeah, she ended up being put in retirement due to cancer at the age of 53. It was kind of a sad thing, but, I actually remembered watching her commercials and even seeing her in some interviews here and there on regular TV, so, it's kind of sad we probably won't ever see her again, except for in reruns of the commercials, but still, definitely a sad loss. Thought I'd acknowledge it. Best wishes to her family. Definitely. Now we can go into the main articles. But before we begin, we also have another pre-game show article, apparently. Yeah, so as some of you folks might know from the course of what happened on the 25th and the 26th of this month, so apparently Michael Jordan had decided to basically speak out about the matters regarding the current gun violence amongst Afro-Americans. And I'll be truthful, I am not surprised that Michael Jordan actually does believe that, yes, we do need serious criminal justice reform, just as I mentioned in the Day 1 episode. I'm surprised that he's talking about this now. We would have thought that he would have brought this up way earlier throughout the entire course of this. But we have seen that it has gotten way too out of hand, what with both Afro-Americans being disproportionately being attacked by officers, and then, of course, Afro-Americans gunning down officers in Dallas and also in Baton Rouge. The chaos, from how I'm viewing it, just won't stop. But I hope that things will settle down beyond this point. There's just too much gun violence at this point, and there's no easy way to balance it out. Not one single bit. In other political news, however, today marks the 26th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act of 1990. Yes, signed into law, I think, by George Herbert Walker Bush. I usually refer to him as Herbert Walker Bush or Bush 41. For the sake of this commentary, I'll constantly refer to him as Bush 41. If I say Herbert Walker Bush, it's just right off the bat. So yes, so as the main speeches were coming in throughout the primetime hours, we got Tom Harkin, and he was basically discussing the whole matter. And I actually do feel that the American Disabilities Act of 1990 is indeed a good way of assuring that those disabilities, physical disabilities, are capable of being able to attend school, to be able to get extra help for things that they necessarily need. But what I do feel horrible about is that even in a heavily liberal and far-left state such as Massachusetts, we still often see people with disabilities getting bashed day after day after day after day after day. I've seen it happen a lot in Boston. In Boston, I've seen that happen a lot. And in Lynn, even though Lynn, everybody around here is kind of like family, it is an insult when we have had, especially school administrations, go out of their way to basically say, like, hey, you got this disability, you can't do this or that or whatever. And the fact that I have seen this on constant occasions, whether it be by teachers or by vice principals, it just boggles my mind as to who the heck is appointing these guys. What I'm at least fortunate about, however, is that, in a small city such as Lynn, in which we have about, I'd say, 93 to 95,000 people, I'm at least glad that, if this kind of bullying ever does happen, even though, yes, we do have this act, the ADA of 90, I'm at least glad that those with disabilities are at least getting kind of, I guess, an encouragement, a support system from their own friends, so, if they're ever being bullied, people will stand up for them. That's what I like to see. But I know for a fact that throughout this nation, there are still people with disabilities that are constantly getting bullied for it. Heck, there are even people, can I even say that intelligence in some way, shape, and form is a disability? Because, throughout the years, I used to be bullied in school for being too smart. And that's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame that we still have scenarios such as this, where you could basically be verbally abused by other people just for being this way. I'll be truthful. I'm glad that I am highly intelligent. I'm glad that I have a variable IQ level of 180 to 230. What I do not appreciate, however, is people questioning me for just simply being me. I'm sure that a lot of you might have also suffered from this when you were younger. Maybe some of you are still suffering from it now. I know I still suffer from it now. Forums are the reason for that, though. That's another story for another time. I won't discuss that here. After all, you came here for a Democratic convention discussion. You didn't come here to learn about my personal life, or did you? But again, I still do believe that there needs to be stronger expansions to Herbert Walker Bush's American Disabilities Act of 1990, and wishfully we'll probably see that later on in the days, regardless of which president we have. Now, of course, going into the nomination process, we, obviously, you had 3 people that would basically be for each candidate, and they would basically deliver their nomination, so to speak, their nomination speech. The one that had stuck out to me most, of course, was former DNC Vice Chair of Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard. Of course, Tulsi Gabbard has been a strong supporter of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and of course, when she had brought up the topics that she did, the biggest thing that we had seen from her, at least heard from her, was the discussion of love and family. Regardless of who your friends are, regardless of who your friends' kids are, regardless of your neighbors, or even just, fellow strangers that need help. She basically says that we need one another. We are family. We need to deliver love to one another regardless of how we get along with one another. And to be truthful, that kind of thing, that kind of form of joining of all humans, human unity in this regard, I believe, is debatably one of the best ways that we could handle discrimination and also any kind of emotional crises that some people might happen to face. The lack of such joining or coming together, I believe, would be a fatal mistake for the human race, and I would notice firsthand, if only because of my time here in Lynn, I have learned that even though everybody's usually there for each other, the sad irony is that sometimes everybody will not be there for me, even when I request of their services. And that is actually one of the reasons why this commentary had come to be in the way it did, because I'm just here alone. I'm speaking by myself. Is it a bad thing? No. It gives me more airtime But it is still a shame that I have to do all this discussion alone. I wanted to do this with other people, and I still have to shame my media panel for that. I don't mean to do this publicly, but whatever floats my boat, right? But Tulsi Gabbard does make a point. We need something such as unity amongst all humans, or else bad things could potentially happen. So wishfully, we can all come together and create a movement that works for everybody involved. Not just a few, not just one. We're all in this together. That's basically what Tulsi had said here. And then let's go into the actual nominating process. Now, you could see Bernie Sanders just go into tears. There's like a few minor tears. He wasn't like wailing or whatever. Bernie Sanders crying, that's kind of a scary thought. But it's more or less because the Democrats, a broad portion, Larry Sanders, yeah, that's right, Bernie's older brother, he made it. He made it to the Democratic National Convention and made what was debatably the utmost notable and emotional voting of Bernie throughout the entirety of day 2. I'll tell you this was actually a moment that I was waiting for a long time, and definitely a moment that a lot of other people were waiting for a long time. You know, it wasn't a major, it wasn't something that I guess was majorly covered by the media, but I'm sure that maybe going into tomorrow morning, going into the morning of the 27th, oh, it's John's birthday, actually. Happy birthday, dude. Yeah, John Ortiz of Some Call Me Johnny, the Super Gaming Brothers, Brain Scratch Comms, and a whole bunch of other affiliates. Yeah. Go spam his accounts. Give him happy birthday wishes, please. But either way, this was indeed one of the more bittersweet moments of Bernie's campaign up to now, and to see Larry Sanders have such an emotional reaction, this was lovely to see. This was a lovely memory. That's something that I will keep in my mind virtually forever. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if, if I decided to run for office and something such as that happened with, I don't know, close friends or relatives that just have, like, a definitively infinite love for me to that point. I would not be surprised if that would occur. Not at all. Not at all. But that would be lovely. However, even with the emotional impact of Larry Sanders, Bernie had the unfortunate issue regarding superdelegates, unpledged superdelegates. I think it's 719 or 712 people that basically were the people that were made to push other candidates over the top, and the fact that Hillary Rodham's campaign had over 400 of these superdelegates go onto her campaign before Lincoln Chafee, Jim Webb, Bernie Sanders, and virtually everybody else in the race on the Democratic side decided to join in. Well, you can see how this turned out. South Dakota ended up being the state that Hillary would end up sending her over the top in terms of the 2,382 delegate count that was necessary. The official delegate pool, based on what I'm aware of, in terms of Hillary Rodham's delegate count, was 2,838. That's more than enough for the majority, so as a result, we ended up getting what was the unfortunate outcome for virtually more than half of the entire Wells Fargo Arena audience, the nomination for Hillary Rodham as the Democratic Party slot candidate in the general election. It's definitely not what a lot of Bernie supporters wanted. We wanted a contested convention, and unfortunately that's not what we got. So as a result, this is basically the unfortunate reality that we reside in. So at the current moment, the campaign is Hillary Rodham and Tim Kaine versus Donald Trump and Mike Pence versus Gary Johnson and former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld versus Jill Stein, but we don't know if Bernie Sanders will join the Jill Stein ticket, or maybe we'll have, I don't know, Nina Turner, who actually got kicked out of the Democratic National Convention, much to my shock and surprise, for whatever reasons happened. I don't know. Maybe she was saying something that I guess the guards or maybe the Democratic Party didn't like, and they decided to just boot her out. This is one of those reasons why she would probably... this is something that would probably influence her to do something on the campaign trail. We don't know what that would be yet, but who knows? Maybe she could join in on Jill if Bernie doesn't decide to go, but we'll see. We'll definitely see what happens in the upcoming weeks and months leading up to the first presidential debate on September 26th. How far are we in? Oh, only about 16 and a half minutes. Good. Good, making good time. Now, throughout the course of the night, and ironically, this is the surprise. Bernie Sanders was not who was one of the most searched people. Bill Clinton and Gary Johnson were the two most searched politicians at that point. During tonight, during the course of the night of the 26th, Bill Clinton and Gary Johnson were numbers 1 and 2 respectively in the utmost searched presidential candidates. Yeah, Bill Clinton, 2016, why not? I wanted Jimmy Carter to run this season, but unfortunately he couldn't. It was a shame. I wanted Jimmy Carter 2016 since 2012 and 13. Why didn't it happen? But I digress. But still, it's not a surprise that Bill Clinton was being searched about a lot because, he would end up speaking tonight at night 2 or day 2. But it shocks me that Gary Johnson would be the talk of the town when Hillary Rodham ended up becoming the official nominee. It's kind of an odd scenario because nobody expects Gary Johnson to be the talk of the town when it's the Democratic National Convention and Gary Johnson's on the Libertarian ticket with Bill Weld. Bear in mind, Bill Weld also used to be a Republican. Of course, he went to the Libertarian ticket. I actually also, while it's on the mind, Glenn Beck actually left the Republican Party. Who knows? He might actually endorse Gary Johnson. Now that I think of it, that could make a major boost in the polls to help Gary Johnson get into the debates. We'll see what happens though with that. But yeah, we'll see how that all goes down in quarter 3 and 4. That will indeed be a very interesting scenario if Gary Johnson can end up in the debates. That'll be a definitely great topic for sure. But after the official nomination of Hillary Rodham and after everybody started discussing it after 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Dem Exit Dexit campaign began. Bernie supporters were going to Jill Stein. We had a Bernie supporter walkout. Yes, a whole bunch of Bernie supporters, they just walked out of the arena. Hundreds, by the hundreds, maybe over 1,000 of them left, leaving only half of a Wells Fargo arena to be open. That's right, half of the seats were open seats. You could literally see how empty it was. It was kind of scary. But it wasn't too scary to the point where I could say it was a bad scenario. This was indeed the best possible thing that could happen, because it shows that there is no true party unity. There is no true party unity right now. If people are still wanting to vote for Bernie Sanders, these people will write them in. I'll still write in Bernie if Bernie will still be doing any kind of major campaigning, and or if the write-in campaign has enough support that it can contend against Hillary Rodham and Donald Trump. And of course, let's not forget a whole bunch of Bernie supporters as well. They ran over to Jill Stein. Heck, even a Bernie delegate had said that she would instead pledge her allegiance to Jill Stein after this whole thing went down. It's clear now that, yes, this will all come down to the third-party candidates. So it will come down to the independents. It will come down to the libertarians. It will come down to the Green Rainbow Party. anything goes now. Anything goes now. This is not what we wanted. We didn't want to have Hillary versus Donald versus Gary versus Jill. We wanted it to simply be Bernie versus Donald so that this kind of scenario wouldn't happen. Bernie is Donald's worst nightmare. Donald could possibly wipe the floor with Hillary, and we don't know how the heck Gary and Jill will fend up against both of them. But we'll have to see if they can end up in the debates on September 26th. I cannot stop repeating myself I can't stop repeating myself on that. I have to keep repeating myself. That is a very important topic, and I'm sure that a lot of people will keep that in mind as we go into the later portions of the year. That is for sure. Now, in the matter of third-party support, as I stated before, after Donald Trump got nominated, third-party candidacy search counts went up by well over 1,150%. Over 1,150%. That means that a lot of people are truly wondering, who are the other candidates? What do they want? What do these people want that the Democrats and Republicans can't give? What can the donkeys and the elephants not deliver that the other parties will? And we'll probably be seeing more from that as the days go on, especially during the week of this convention. Now, I don't know how high the percentage count in terms of third-party support has gone up since the Democratic nomination of Hillary Rodham became a reality. I can't tell you for sure. Maybe it's up by over 2,000%. Maybe it's up by over 2,500, 3,000%. Maybe. These are just rough estimates. I don't actually expect these numbers to be legitimately true. If they are legitimately true, somebody clarify that for me in the comments. This is kind of on the fly, so I really don't know much of anything except for the footnotes that I wrote down earlier, or typed down earlier today. This took hours, trust me. But as I've stated before, in 1990, 1991, Bernie Sanders had said, in the event that there would truly be any real change in federal politics, it would all come down to having a third party take over. So, we might see, again, there is a chance that Bernie could possibly run as an independent, or maybe Gary or Jill could become president. Anything can go. So maybe it's up to these three to really determine the outcome of the fate of the North American future. We don't know. We truly don't. We truly don't. But because of this big divide in the Democratic Party has literally declared war on the North American people. And it is clear to me that it could end in what I view as political bloodshed. For all that we know, it could possibly end in a draw. It probably might end up going to the Senate or something. Who knows? Either way, the donkeys and the elephants, they're decimated already. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens in the future of our politics. Oh my goodness, I really need to edit my stuff. Here's what I wrote about Eric Holder by accident. What it says here, Eric Holder, who you know as the former Attorney General of the nation, now as a part of Airbnb, has basically delivered his discussion on how much criminal justice reform needs to become the norm of this nation. That's supposed to say how. It's supposed to say how. Oh my goodness, I need to re-edit this. The post that I'm talking about is on Facebook. I have all of my notes for what I want to discuss on Facebook so that I can then do it for YouTube. But, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that happened. This is why I'm glad I still have MS Word 2010 on this Windows 10 computer. I'll edit that up eventually. But still, it's not surprising that Eric Holder had brought up the matter of that we need criminal justice reform, because it's clear. It's clear that, we need to stop having issues in which people are being wrongfully imprisoned and jailed, especially because of the fact that the states have more people in jail than virtually every other major nation on the planet. I think we have, I'd say, maybe 4 to 8 times the amount of the second most imprisoned nation. I can't be sure on those numbers, but it's something around that. It's definitely something around that. But if I've learned anything out of Barack Obama's presidency, this entire year he's been talking about prison reform, because we've been having issues where the punishment delivered by the judges or the jury do not fit the crime at hand. Like, I don't know, you could just be, you can be in jail for like 21, 23 years for just like a petty theft of a random TV. Just because you're an Afro-American, just because you're black. Or, in this case, dark chocolate, as some people might say. It's very offensive. Why the duck would anybody use dark chocolate to define a black guy? But yeah, I remember down in Florida. I guess a black guy ended up getting put into jail for about 21 years. This was back in the 70s or 80s, just for just for taking a random TV, just for stealing a TV. Theft does not ever deserve that much of a criminal punishment. I mean, sure, if you're stealing money, then okay, yes. You'll have to pay a fine and then also have years on top of that. But, if it's just something minor like this, I don't know, like stealing a bag of candy from the store, like a whole bunch of teenagers did here in Massachusetts. I don't know what the duck was going on. So, like, a whole bunch of teenagers just busted into a gas station within the past day or so. It was overnight. And, I don't know how much candy they got away with, but it was a massive lot. It was a huge lot. You could see the entire gas station and parking lot was just filled to the rim with candy on the ground. Scary sight. But, nowadays we are much more lenient with the way that these sentences are delivered. They're not delivered as badly as they were many years ago. So I'm at least fortunate that, yes, we are having scenarios where the punishment is fitting the crime far better than how it was in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So, wishfully we have that, and also wishfully we have easier ways to be able to handle the finances of prisons, so that we could put our $80 billion to other things, such as, I don't know, free tuition for all students at public colleges and universities. That's Barack Obama's words, not mine. That's Barack Obama's words, not mine. And this was after Bernie Sanders started his campaign. Bear that in mind. Either way, I do believe that prison reform and criminal justice reform will allow for easier racial justice and a much more remedied form of it, so that it is not as bad as how we have seen it to this date, especially with what's been going on all around this nation. It's just gotten way too out of hand that things need to change, and I'm sure that they will change for the better once the time comes. That also means that we need to abolish the death penalty, and that is actually something I've actually been very supportive of, being against the death penalty. The abolishing of the death penalty, because if we do not have the death penalty abolished, we'll have states such as Texas, which have the highest death sentence rate out of virtually every single state. I think they have like about 320 to 350 death sentences. I don't know if that's annually or if that's how much they've done since the death penalty's been in play. I mean, at least in places such as Utah, at least they give you a choice on how you want to be put into physical retirement. So technically, yes, it's like Burger King. You can have it your way. But again, in reality, a life sentence is a real death sentence. That is the real death sentence. You're just stuck in a building that you can't get out of. At least that's how I have viewed the way that life sentences are for people. Some people just can't take it. They just can't. Then, of course, we ended up having mothers of the fallen Afro-American community, that were gunned down by the authorities. They had spoken rather well, and they basically expanded upon what Eric Holder's speech basically said. And this is basically that, yes, the lives of minorities matter. I will say minority lives matter because it's not simply just black lives. It is the life of virtually every single minority. Because I'll be truthful. It is common that we see, what is common in this nation, what's common in the States, is that we often see whites be more privileged or arrested alive, taken in alive, for a crime that if a black person or an Amerasian or a Hispanic person were to commit, they would probably be either gunned down or brutally beaten. And that's a shame. It is a shame that we have this happen, and the fact that our police force and other higher-ups in the nation, even though it's about maybe 1% of these officers actually doing this, and even federal officials, it is clear that we need to have these people retrained and to assure that such bias is not present anymore. It would be a fatal mistake if this happens again with any more non-whites, especially if this starts going into crimes involving strictly women or Amerasians or homosexuals / transgender, anybody in the LGBTQIAPK community. So yeah, whether it's Amerasians, LGBTQIAPK, women, Hispanics, Native Americans even, and so on and so forth. It would be clear to us that we would need stronger criminal justice reform to assure that minorities don't get hurt. And even here, as I've stated before in Lynn, we have an issue where, and especially in schools, where the minorities, especially Hispanics, are the ones that are getting attacked the most by the administration, being wrongfully incriminated by the administrations, and we need stronger criminal justice reform to assure that doesn't happen in our schools, as well as within the police force. But I'll be truthful, we've never truly had many racial issues with the police force, but the fact that we have officers and chiefs here that basically say that all lives matter, or blue lives matter, it is clear that there is a political imbalance between the citizens and the authorities, and there needs to be a change in that as well. Wishfully, the next Essex County sheriff will be able to change that when the time comes, but we don't know who will end up as the Essex County sheriff. We'll have to see at the end of campaign 2016 for that. Or maybe that's what that special vote in September is that my grandmother was talking about. I'd have to double check that. But again, I say all of this as somebody who is white, who is black, as white as I am. Yes, I am black. As Asian as I happen to be, I happen to have a good amount of relatives either from Russia as well as significant portions of West and Southwest Asia. I do have a good amount of relatives from India, as well as South Korea, China, and Japan. I'm actually about 3% Japanese, according to Ancestry.com. I do have a lot of relatives from the Oceanian countries, as well as the Pacific Islands. And I'm even 2% Native American. So I say this as all does. I say this as a white man. I say this as a black man. I say this as an Amerasian. I say this as a Pacific Islander. I say this as a Native American. I'm basically an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different nationalities, all put into one, living here in North America, living here in the United States of North America. So yes, I take the matter with criminal justice reform with the utmost powerful of seriousness, and we must deliver racial justice now. Proper racial justice reform, proper criminal justice reform, or else more issues, as we have seen, will keep happening, and there will be far too much dominance in the All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter movement. There needs to be a significant balance, or else nothing will get done. Continuing on. Now, one of the things that I was rather surprised about was actually the fact that during this, they brought up the 9/11 attacks. They brought up the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Not the ones that happened in the Pentagon and that random crash that happened in Pennsylvania when a whole bunch of people decided to hijack the plane from the terrorists and just guide the plane somewhere so it couldn't hit the White House or wherever else. But, of course, as you know, when first responders went to the World Trade Center, there was, I guess, a lot of pollution and debris that had, I guess, infected them over time, whether it was physically or mentally. And for a good amount of years, I think up to 2006, they did not get any major support. They didn't get any major support from the federal government after they had found out and ruled that there were related illnesses caused by the effects of what happened on 9/11. This is why Jon Stewart has spoken out so strongly about supporting the 9/11 First Responders Bill. And I wholeheartedly agree. The 9/11 First Responders Bill is exactly what we need in order to assure that first responders all over the course of the 9/11 attacks, any remaining first responders that haven't gotten support, can get the help that they need, and also so that they can live without the worry that, they'll have to pay out of pocket for what they necessarily require. And I hope that we can have an expansion to this bill in which would allow for other laws that can allow for first responders of any kind of scenario, if they end up picking up an illness because of the event that happened. Like, for example, if we did not have the One Fund here in Massachusetts, those that were first responders at the Boston Marathon 2013 bombings that were caused by Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Yes, I'm still going to pronounce it as Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. I emphasize the D. Watch Decimation of Local Terrorism, The Rise and Fall of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, which is part of Season 1, Episode 1, to understand more on why I pronounce it that way. If we didn't have the One Fund, then I do believe we would have had the Boston Marathon 2013 bombing first responders bill. And that probably would have been, just like deadlocked in legislature because of how the Republicans would either stay silent or ignore, stay silent and ignore or vote against the bill, just as they had done with the 9/11 first responders bill. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It is ironic that the Republicans are saying that they're using the Blue Lives Matter rhetoric, yet they won't even defend or deliver welfare and restitution to blue lives. That is an insult, and if anybody in the Republican Party has committed that act, then I do believe that they do not deserve to be in office. They need to be ousted and get another job. I cannot stress this enough. Either way, the first responders for 9/11 and a whole bunch of other different disasters and terrorist acts that have happened, these first responders don't get the love that they rightfully deserve, and wishfully we can have a president as well as a Democratic legislature, or at least a bipartisan legislature, that understands that we need to give these people support, and we need to give it to them now, or else nothing will get done. More people will keep losing lives from illnesses that are heavily curable. And this actually takes us into comedy. This is one of the last major topics of the night, fourth to last, much to my shock and surprise. So, Howard Dean. Yes, Howard Dean spoke today. I was so happy. Because not only did he talk about the possibility of us getting universal health, single-payer health care for everybody else in the nation,
but we're going to bring it to South Carolina, and Oklahoma, and Arizona, and North Dakota, and New Mexico. We're going to bring it to California, and Texas, and New York, and we're going to bring it to South Dakota, and Oregon, and Washington, and Michigan. And then we're going to go to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah! Finally, I cannot believe I actually got that right. At what time in the AM is this? It is 2:29 in the AM. Oh my goodness, and there are people sleeping in the house. Nobody's gonna really wake up from this, I swear. But yes, I was able to pull off Howard Dean after dark. How perfect. How perfect. He unfortunately did not say, yeah, at the end of his speech, but still, that was exactly what we needed. That was exactly what we needed from Howard Dean tonight. That was perfect. He knew that he could get away with it too. So I know that the media is going to have a fun time messing around with that. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert actually did, yeah. Oh man, if only you saw tonight's episode. Oh, duck. Fun times. Fun times. But then you have Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, yes. Unfortunately, he was not playing the saxophone, and he did not jump 40 feet in the air to do a massive slam dunk that would break the glass like he does in the Super Famicom versions of NBA Jam. And NBA Jam Tournament Edition, I assume. Instead, he decided to be a bit more like his 1992 and 1996 Democratic National Convention acceptance speeches. But I'll tell you this. If you want somebody to deliver a speech at any event, go to Bill Clinton. He can talk, and he talked for about 47 to 51 minutes in this one. Instead of basically delivering like, hey, vote for Hillary, she can do all these kind of crazy things. What he instead did was talk about her working history, as well as her own personal career. But it was a love story. It was a love story because, you know, Bill Clinton, he met Hillary Rodham in 1971. You know, he kind of had the urge to basically, I don't know, tap her shoulder and I guess start talking to her, but you know, for a good amount of days, you know, he didn't really have the courage to do so. You know, eventually, you know, things went here and there, and then, you know, I guess they started dating or whatever, and then, you know, they ended up becoming a couple. Bill tried to propose to Hillary, I'd say, 3 separate times. She ended up accepting his proposal on the 3rd time. 3rd time's the charm. Of course, Hillary had been all over the ducking place in terms of moving because, of course, you know, this was for her career. Especially when she had seen, you know, kids having issues with their own lives as well as those with disabilities not being able to really do anything or be able to get an education. And that is why things such as the American Disabilities Act of 1990 came into play due to Herbert Walker Bush's presidency. And there was just a whole bunch of other things that I could discuss, but to sum it all up, it basically make a TLDR version of the entire thing that he said. Imagine having a history lesson about one's own life and how they interacted with the people that they loved the most. That would explain the 41-year marriage and the 45-year bond that is... What is it, 55? Is it 45 or 55? No, it's... Yeah, it's 45. The 45-year bond between Bill Clinton and Hillary Rodham. It indeed shows that, you know, they've been through everything. They've been through everything. They understand the work and the endurance that they've had to go through in order to get to where they wanted to be. It also is basically the reason why Hillary has been able to hold public office for many different things.
It's also why Bill had won his presidency in 1992 and in 1996. And I say this entirely without bias. I'd say this speech in its entirety, showed the positive side of Hillary's track record. Even though, she's been bashed and, she's had a lot of other issues that have come up within the past 25 years at least since 1991, that have made her life much more of a living hell. But from the looks of it, even though there is a lot of bad, there's just as much good as there is bad. It is clear that, yes, she has helped people, even though it might not be in the way that some people might like, even if some people have had to lose their lives for it. But in the end, if I had to say, in some forms, I'm not saying in all, Hillary has been capable of keeping, in some way, shape, and form, people in this nation safe, whether it's giving people with disabilities the availability of education, whether it is giving health care possibilities to millions of children, whether it is assuring that something such as the 9/11 First Responders Bill got the attention of the legislature in a form in which would allow for Democrats to basically say, like, hey, these 9/11 victims and first responders need better care. We need to give it to them now. And, it's things such as that I feel will be talked about during the debates. I don't think this is something that people would expect to see just out of a regular speech. I think that this is something that will be discussed more and more as the times go on. And this, I feel, is also the damage control that Bill Clinton needed to do if he truly wanted this entire convention to basically do a total 180. At this point, I don't think that the convention has done a 180. It has done a 270. It's about to come back full circle. But I do feel that in the case of what's gone on at this point, I'd say that 270 is better than nothing. It's better than nothing. It's a half and half. Everything's swaying in the balance. But at least Bill Clinton's damage control was the talk of the night. And that is what I at least appreciate. This was not Hillary's night. It was Bill's time to shine. And he definitely put his 47 to 51 minutes to good use. I think that was just as long, almost as long as his speech, his acceptance speech in 1996. However, I think that was about 57 minutes. Somebody fact check me on that if I can't do it myself. And then that leads us into the second to last topic, late show coverage. But tonight was kind of a bland night. Stephen Colbert didn't really have much of anything to talk about, except for, of course, the nomination, and then, of course, Howard Dean. But after that, we didn't really have much of anything. But we ended up getting the Hilly Fanatic, which is basically a blue version of the Philadelphia Phillies Philly Fanatic from Major League Baseball. So apparently, the Philly Fanatic is supposed to basically, dance around. The Hilly Fanatic is supposed to be, a big anus fan of Hillary Rodham. The Hilly Fanatic is blue instead of green, as the original Philly Fanatic is, just to clarify. And if you saw the Hilly Fanatic dance to get ready for this, which was released in 1991. I didn't know it was released in 91. I thought it was released earlier or later than that. My goodness. The Hilly Fanatic was just dancing lazily to get ready for this. And then Steve was like, you don't really seem really up for Hill. So what are you really into? And then you see the Hilly Fanatic flip the Hillary Kane sign, and it says "Feel the Burn." Then you have the Hillary Fanatic dancing like a real fanatic. That's right. That's right. Even the Hillary Fanatic approves more of Bernie Sanders than
of Hillary Rodham and Tim Kaine. That is insanity. And then after that, we had cartoon Hillary Rodham Clinton, who, as you expect, is the Late Show cartoon version of Hillary Rodham, based on the same templates as Donald Trump and Bubble Burst Bernie Sanders. The only difference with Bubble Burst Bernie Sanders is that he's the only one that actually uses the real Bernie Sanders vocal clips for that particular character. Other than that, I know the cartoon Donald Trump is vocalized by Stephen Colbert. I don't know who vocalizes cartoon Hillary Clinton right now. I'd have to check. Sorry, Hillary Rodham. I prefer saying Rodham. I prefer Rodham over Clinton. I don't think of Hillary as an actual Clinton. Is it weird for me to say that? I don't know. Maybe it's just because of her hair. I love this hair that's on her in this wallpaper. This is her from 1993, if my memory serves correctly. She looked better here than she does now. Maybe it's because she's almost 70. Maybe it's just because of aging issues. But I won't judge. I just prefer her from the 90s. That's all. Especially Rodham 96. I love Rodham 96. Come here, Hillary. I tried to be Bill Clinton there, but I can't. Who's up for a little game of basketball? I did not have Duncan relations with that basketball. I can't do this on recorder. I am so sorry. I am horribly sorry. But that's the end of the Late Show coverage, and now we come to the final topic of the night. How far are we in? About 53 minutes, so this is going to be a rather short episode in comparison to the others. So, this is basically I'm going to bring up the fate of the future for Bernie Sanders, at least based on the reports that I've gotten up to 1:09 a.m. So, as I stated before, when Bill Clinton took to the podium, virtually all of the Bernie supporters, about, I'd say, half of the entire Wells Fargo arena, had emptied out. They went out onto the streets in protest of the Democratic Party and the fact that we are still divided. You know, I might be registered as a Democrat, but in reality, I'm at least glad that I can vote for whoever I want in a general election. So, you know, who knows? If the Bernie Sanders write-in campaign is still indeed going strongly, I'll still vote in Bernie. And I think I'll still do that. If Bernie decides to run as an independent, I'll vote Bernie. If he decides to join Jill Stein on a Green Party ticket, much to anybody's shock and surprise if that does happen, then I'm still voting for Bernie. We have a lot of Bernie or bust people, and Sarah Silverman, I have to repeat, please do not create a war with Bernie supporters. They will fight back strongly. You don't know what could come of it, except for non-violent protesting, of course. But of course, because of this leaving the convention in protest, this is indeed something that we're probably going to be seeing going more into day 3. We don't know how that will turn out. But it is clear that the good amount of the people that are still a part of the campaign, a part of the Bernie campaign, as well as a good amount of Bernie supporters that have fought all the way up to now to see Bernie become the nominee, they're enraged at the Rodham campaign and the Democratic Party for how this all turned out. Now, later on, going into late in the night, around midnight, going into 1:09, now you can see the Bernie supporters walk out. It's still going on at the time of this recording, and they appear to have intersected or intertwined with a Black Lives Matter protest that was going on in the area, and I guess the Jill Stein supporters that were still hanging out in town were apparently caught up in the mix. So yeah, you got 3 different protesting groups walking together, all for different reasons, but with the same cause, for real change and reform in this nation. And bear in mind, they piled up the streets. Highway routes were blocked off. I've never seen this before. I mean, heck, even in other conventions where we've seen, I think, what about the one in Chicago? I think in 1968, where I guess a whole bunch of policemen were beating the crap out of people with tonfas. Who'd duck? What kind of an officer uses a tonfa nowadays? I don't know anybody that does. But, this kind of stuff is probably what we're going to be seeing for the rest of the week. We're probably going to be seeing more of these protests. We're going to be seeing a lot of angry words thrown everywhere. But please do not forget that we have the Sanders Institute, or the Sanders Institution, as well as a group that he is referring to under the name of Our Revolution. It is also the reason that none of our email addresses, for those that have supported Bernie up to now, none of them will be handed over to the Rodham campaign, fortunately. So we'll see how everything goes down. We definitely will. But in the case of Bernie, right now the Democratic Party's on life support. But roughly about a day after everything was done and said, after Hillary Rodham ended up becoming a nominee, she still has to accept the nomination. Bernie has officially become an independent once again. And again, I knew that if he didn't get the nomination on the Democratic side, he would directly leave the Democratic Party. It didn't seem or make sense for him to stay as a Democratic Party member if in reality he has always been an independent. And, again, this can lead for a massive lot of possibilities, but strictly two different possibilities at this point in time. His role as an independent can allow for external work to be done in the campaign season as we view it, and bear in mind, far as we're aware, he doesn't intend to do fundraising for the Rodham campaign and a few other things. I'm not really sure as to what he'll be doing at this point in time. But, he could stay as an independent, or he could potentially jump on the Green Party ticket. Jill Stein will step aside, and Bernie could still continue his revolution through means of the Green Rainbow Party, which has basically had their campaign... I'd say the Green Party in their own regard has had their campaign run in the same way as Bernie's had, with basically the support of the people's donations, of individual contributions, and without the need of a super PAC to truly deliver their message across an entire nation where you can get millions of people coming out to vote. And bear in mind, the independents will make up the they will determine the outcome of how the general election turned out. If Bernie still ends up in the campaign season somehow, if he decides to continue as an independent or even join Jill Stein for whatever reason that happens to be, then who knows? Independents might actually choose the first Green Party or write-in candidate of our modern history and of American history, because we haven't had a Green Party or write-in candidate to this point become the president. Anything can happen. Anything can happen at this time, so the war for existence is clearly still going in full throttle. Let's see where things go beyond this point. And with that, that's the end of day 2. If I wanted to talk about more, I gladly would, but there really is nothing more out of the 61 minutes that I've pretty much discussed. So with that said, I guess I have to end it here. Yeah, I'll just make sure that everything is edited up, and this episode will be uploaded. Well, of course it's uploaded. You're watching this episode. So I'll be able to get an early sleep in, finally, after all this time. And then we could see each other again for part 3, for day 3, which is part 4 of the commentary. I apologize. So part 3 is going to be all about Tim Kaine, because of course Tim Kaine has to accept the VP nomination. So I'm going to just open up a new tab in Opera, and I will look up and see who will be showing up for day 3. Now, of course, I don't think that they have organized which speakers are going to be who's here, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. So, let's see, gotta keep going.
You gotta be ducking kidding me. Oh, okay. It's organized. Kind of. So there's still a good amount of U.S. senators and speakers that have still yet to talk. But oh right, for day two we got Klobuchar. Klobuchar, I choose you. Use wind sprint. I'm sorry, Klobuchar. But you have that kind of a name that I have to. I'm sorry, AB Klobuchar. You just have that kind of a name that I have to poke fun at because you sound too much like a Pokemon. Pokemon, with a poke and a mine on the hip goes out on those apples. Nah, enough Bill Cosby for a day. We'll get to that later. So I'm assuming these are the primetime speakers, so we're going to be having the theme being working together, and this, I assume, will be involving how we will handle jobs, how we will handle foreign policy, how we will handle virtually everything in the way that we handle government, as well as what we could expect, from the children and everybody else in between. So, who we are going to be having is U.S. Representative G.K. Butterfield of North Carolina, California Representative Judy Chu, Elise Hogue, the president of NARAL, Pro-Choice America. I don't know what NARAL is. Oh, right. It's pro-choice. We're probably going to be talking about abortion rights. The women's right to control her own body, which I'm quite surprised that hasn't really been talked about up to this point in the convention, even though it's probably been mentioned a little bit. Rear Admiral John Hudson, retired Rear Admiral of the U.S. Navy. Then, of course, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Oh, I love Jesse Jackson. Remember when he ran for president? He did run for president, right? The circuit board is saying yes. Okay, I just needed to make sure that I got my memory straight. New Mexico Representative Ben Ray Lujan, former CIA Director and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, former Police Commissioner Charles H. Ramsey. You might remember Charles H. Ramsey. We've heard of him here and there. Then we have Stephanie Shryock, I presume that's how it's pronounced, Shryock, the president of Emily's List. What a name. It's like Craigslist, except it's with Emily. It might be something entirely different. I've never heard of Emily's List. I apologize if I've offended anybody in Emily's List as a result of this. Then you have Neera Tanden, president of the Center for American Progress Action Fund, U.S. Senator and 2016 vice presidential nominee Tim Kaine of Virginia. It's quite a shocker that Tim Kaine would be speaking before the end. You would think that they would end off with Tim Kaine, but I don't know if this is in exact order. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, heck, Meryl Streep talked after Bill Clinton, and she came dressed up as early 70s Hillary Rodham, much to my shock and surprise. So I guess it's expected, because right after, we're going to have Barack Obama and Joe Biden, headliners. But why would you have Joe Biden after Barack Obama? Wouldn't you want to have Joe Biden first and then Barack Obama? You might remember that Joe Biden was actually supposed to run this campaign season, but, because Bernie Sanders was in the picture, that's why Joe didn't decide to run. He knew that the Democratic Party would be all set in and of itself, so that's why he didn't decide to run, and it's unfortunate because now we won't ever see him try to run for office again. So it's sad. That is indeed sad, but at least he still has his term in the vice presidency. At least he still has that, as well as his lovely after-career pension, or whatever the duck the federal government pays you afterwards. But with that said, that is the end of the Day 2 commentary, so we'll be back in Day 3. Day 3 probably might not be as notable in terms of speeches. Maybe we'll get something out of Barack Obama and Tim Kaine, but I don't expect much of anything out of everybody else, even Jesse Jackson, as much as I love the guy. It's probably all going to come down to the protests and talk about Jill Stein. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. But until then, you folks have a good day. You take care. I'm out.